September 7, 1191. In a desperate gamble that defied all reason, one king's impossible charge would change the fate of the Holy Land forever. Picture the heat. The air shimmers above the sand, a furnace trapping an army against the sea. 20,000 crusaders are strung out for miles, a thin line of steel and faith between the water and the hills. In those hills, watching, waiting, are over 30,000 of Saladin's finest warriors. The trap has been sprung. The greatest military mind in the Muslim world has them exactly where he wants them. Or so he believes. The strategic situation was a nightmare. King Richard of England, known as the Lionheart, had marched his force down a narrow coastal strip for days. It was a violation of every rule of war. His back to the sea, a hostile army shadowing his every move. But his choice was simple: reach the port of Jaffa and resupply, or watch the entire Third Crusade wither and die in the desert. Every step was agony. Men in full armor cooked alive. Horses dropped dead from exhaustion. And always, the drums from the hills. The psychological warfare was constant, a reminder that death watched from just beyond sight. What Saladin didn't know was that Richard had spent every hour of that march preparing for this moment, designing a formation that would defy the mathematics of annihilation. Dawn on September 7th revealed the scale of the disaster. Saladin's forces emerged from the morning mist in a vast crescent, a perfect killing arc designed to envelop and shred the Christian column. His right flank held elite Kurdish lancers on high ground. His center was his personal guard, the Mamluks, warriors raised from birth for war. But his left was the true engine of death, thousands of Turkish horse archers, each capable of unleashing a storm of arrows that could darken the sky. The numbers were undeniable. The Crusaders were outnumbered, exhausted, and pinned. A direct assault was suicide. A retreat was impossible. So why, at this moment of supreme disadvantage, did Richard give the order to hold? To stand and die under a hail of arrows? For 3 hours, that's exactly what happened. The Turkish archers circled, their arrows falling in a relentless, hissing rain. Shields became heavy with embedded shafts. Men and beasts fell. The pressure was immense, a test of nerve against an enemy they could not touch. The rearguard, the Knights Hospitaller, bore the brunt. Their marshal watched his brothers picked off one by one. Frantic messengers rode to Richard, begging for permission to charge, to die fighting. Each time, the king's reply was the same: hold. Wait. Discipline is the bridge between desperation and victory. But discipline has its breaking point. It began with one night, a hospitaller named Baldwin. Watching another comrade fall, something in him shattered. He shouted a challenge, dug his spurs into his horse, and charged, alone, into the massed ranks of the enemy. It was an act of glorious suicide, but it triggered an avalanche. Seeing his lone charge, 300 of his brother knights broke formation without orders and followed. A disorganized, furious mass of steel and fury smashed into Saladin's flank. This should have been their end. 300 against 10,000 is not a battle, it's a slaughter. But what happened in the next 60 seconds would stun every commander on the field. The unthinkable occurred. The concentrated force of that desperate charge hit Saladin's spread-out line at its weakest point. The Kurdish cavalry, perfect for harassment, could not withstand the focused impact of heavily armored knights at full gallop. The line buckled. Then it broke. Panic is a virus, and it began to spread across the Muslim ranks. Richard, seeing the chaos erupt, faced his moment of truth. Reinforce a reckless charge and risk everything, or let his best knights be swallowed. He chose. That horn signal was the sound of a tactical revolution. It was not a call to brawl, but a command for a controlled, devastating maneuver he had drilled for months. What followed was 17 minutes of surgical, medieval warfare that has been studied for centuries. The main Crusader force erupted from their defensive line in a coordinated series of wedge formations. Richard himself led the central spearhead, aimed directly at Saladin's elite corps. The impact was catastrophic. The Mamluks, undefeated for years, found themselves split apart by a wall of lances they could not stop. On the flanks, the Templars smashed into the confused Turkish archers, who were now useless in close combat. The battlefield mathematics flipped in an instant. Saladin watched from his command post as his grand army unraveled before his eyes. His veteran units, the conquerors of Jerusalem, were fleeing. His personal guard abandoned their posts. At one point, Richard and his knights came within a lance's thrust of the Sultan himself. The rout was total. When the dust settled, the field was littered with the standards and bodies of Saladin's finest. Christian chroniclers would count 7,000 Muslim dead. Crusader losses were a fraction of that. It was the most lopsided, decisive tactical victory of the entire crusading era. But here is the haunting twist of history. The decision made in the flush of absolute triumph that would echo for centuries. As his knights rallied, eager to pursue the broken enemy and finish Saladin for good, Richard raised his banner and signaled a halt. He held them back. The reasons were sound in the moment. Exhausted men and horses, a priceless enemy baggage train to secure. But the strategic cost was monumental. Saladin escaped with the core of his army and, more importantly, with his life and his authority intact. The victory at Arsuf was absolute, yet incomplete. He won every battle, but in saving his enemy, he lost the war. Richard took Jaffa, his immediate goal. But Jerusalem, the dream that launched the crusade, remained out of reach. Saladin learned a brutal lesson that day: never fight the Crusaders in a pitched battle on their terms. He switched to a war of attrition, of raids and scorched earth, against which Richard's battlefield brilliance was impotent. The Lionheart had authored a masterpiece of tactics, a blueprint for coordinated heavy cavalry that would dominate European warfare. Yet, by choosing immediate security over total victory, he ensured the Holy City would remain under Muslim control for generations to come. The 17 minutes that proved Christian knights could shatter any army also sealed the Third Crusade's ultimate failure. If you are gripped by this story of impossible decisions and history's cruel ironies, show your support. Give this video a like and make sure to subscribe to Winds of Thought for more deep dives into the pivotal moments that shaped our world.